Hi there, Evangeline, Sacred Dive, and Place of Peace. Well, true to how I was saying, um, if you watch my last longer video, how my mother talks about just going into her studio and letting, you know, getting out of the way and letting God come through her. Um, I thought I would just try it today. It's a practice. Oh, it's a practice because the ego's afraid that if it doesn't figure out the right thing or say the right thing, I think it must be afraid of the unknown, because it's possible that if I really get out of the way and just wait until what wants to be expressed come through, maybe I would sit here for an hour, right? Yeah, the word that's coming to mind is discernment. It's such a good word, isn't it? So grown up. And that word, the word represents an ability to sit in an experience for a while and discern, the underneath parts. So maybe if you feel, to use this as an example, when I sit and wait to see what will come through, there's a discernment because I'm not an awakened being yet. So it's not like I just sit here and there's pure being and then, something comes through. Like the ego gets in there, right? And so that discernment is like, okay, if I see something to talk about, did the ego just sort of be like, oh, well, why don't you talk about this? And one of the ways that I think is, fairly um, trustworthy to discern what part inside of you is coming up with the idea is I hope that this is not too maybe I need a little more practical example to make you actually understand what I'm saying, but I'm just going to keep going with it. So say something comes through to talk about, right? When I'm sitting here. And say say my intention is to really be a clear conduit, right? For God to speak through. And if God trips you up, we can say spirit or universe or soul. For me, I really, I don't have that particular God wounding so for me, it's easy to say the word God, but universe, spirit, I think any of those, to me, they all speak to the same thing. So as I'm sitting there, letting something come through, there might be a little blip, and I definitely feel it kind of spatially right now. Like there might be a little blip. It's like, oh, well, you can talk about this, and but then you use that discernment, which is like a quality of just pausing and listening and feeling the energy of that part that has an idea. And it's just a way of gathering information like, okay, does it feel like it is afraid? What's underneath that thought, right? Because if I'm sitting here and just waiting for something to come through, and the ego gets a little afraid of that waiting, it might throw up an idea, right? And then, but then you can just feel into it. It's like, okay, what's the energy of that thought? What's the feeling of that? And often when you do that, you can, maybe it's not the ego, right? Maybe it really is the thing to come through, but if you feel that little movement of fear in there, that's just dead ringer for ego. Or I think, as I've said recently, like I think of ego and unconscious and trauma material all basically interchangeably. They're like the same word to me. Ego, unconscious material, trauma material, all the same thing. Yeah, what I want to say now is might be the only thing I ever really want to talk about. There really is something in each of us, in you, that is completely unable to be affected by what happens in the world. And if that's really far away from your experience, it can take like, well, sometimes it can happen in a flash, but it also can take a lot of time to kind of unearth that part of you that is there. Can't be a take. And I mean, I have worked with this in myself and in my own ancestral lineage. Like, I'm not putting this forth as like spiritual pap. What has happened in my lineage is horrific, in terms of abuse, all kinds of abuse. So, and I've like, at least as far as I've come, like to date, I have taken this, okay, there's something that cannot be destroyed, cannot be touched, tarnished. It's like by anything that could happen. Like the most unimaginably horrible thing that could happen to a human, a baby, a child, whatever that is, it cannot touch that which you actually are. I want to look up. I sometimes go to the Catholic church in town because well, I like singing with people, and I really like my friend Sister Ann there. And I went this Sunday, and oh, what was the song that we were singing? And I was like, oh, that's it. Oh, I think it was called "Be Not Afraid." So let's see if I can find the lyrics to "Be Not." Oh, there we go. "Be Not Afraid," sung by John Michael Talbot. I'm going to read the lyrics. You shall cross the barren desert, but you shall not die of thirst. You shall wander far in safety, though you do not know the way. You shall speak your words in foreign lands, and all will understand. You shall see the face of God and live. Be not afraid. I go before you always. Come follow me, and I will give you rest. And then there's a couple more stanzas. But that, like, you shall cross the barren desert. And obviously that's a metaphor for your life, right? I mean, maybe some of us will cross physical barren deserts as well, and I think that could be very useful to the soul life. But you shall cross the barren desert. Like, that's what we get in this world. That's what we get when we incarnate as humans. But you shall not die of thirst. Like, that which you are will not perish. You shall wander far in safety, though you do not know the way. And you know what I think of when I hear those words is I think of little kids, babies, children, teenagers who are in, situations where they're being abused, they can't leave their home. If they're small enough, they have they can't even use their limbs, right? Their brains aren't developed yet enough to be able to find a way out. That is a barren desert. And that's one of the things we get in this world, right? We can't deny it. Like, that's such a big part of what happens here in this world. Those with very little power, be it mental, size, age, they get abused. But they shall, how does it go? They shall not die of thirst. Even if 80 years later those wounds are still as deep, there's something there that has not been tarnished. In my way, what I've seen is it might take a couple lifetimes to understand that. I think we're in it for the long haul, though, don't you think? And it makes me think of, one of the things that Adyashanti, my main root spiritual teacher, one of his main teachings is that to consider that the reason I incarnated into this humanity, which is a difficult, dense place, the reason we did it is for I so love the earth. I poured myself into it as a redemptive act of love. And that's what you did as well. And that's what it takes. If we're going to do that, what kind of incredible souls would do that? What kind of love would choose to pour itself into a life of childhood abuse? And then, I think the one that's the most difficult and the most power of redemption is to pour yourself into the life of a child that will eventually become an abuser, a perpetrator. Some part here that I think probably just needs a lot more talking to convey what I mean. But maybe for you, and I am definitely stealing this from Adyashanti, but it's so good. Maybe for you, like consider that you so love the world, humanity, the earth, that you poured yourself in as a redemptive act of love. And I wonder, can you touch the spirit that would do that? Because that's what you are.